Yesterday, after I got off an organizing phone call with civil resistors around the country that included some organizers in Minnesota who were telling us that things were really difficult there and they felt like the story was moving away from them and on to other things, and they were begging for people to continue to elevate the plight of people in Minnesota, the way immigrants are still under attack. After I got off that phone call, I sat down and made a video on that very subject, how folks in Minnesota are hiding people in their homes, how the lawlessness and brutality of federal agents has not decreased, and how unfortunately they're seeing, I don't want to say some level of complicity, but they're not seeing assistance from state and local law enforcement, and that it's not the government bureaucrats on a state and local level that are getting the job done of protecting Minnesotans. It's regular, ordinary Minnesotans. People who may have never done any resistance work before. Yeah, all of the activists are involved. That's awesome. People who have so much depth and wealth of experience in organizing and community care, mutual aid, understand how to resist effectively. But it's also thousands and thousands of ordinary people who don't identify as activists. I mean, maybe they do now. Maybe they have been activated, but they are coming out of the woodwork to make sure that they defend their neighbors against the tyranny of ICE and the Trump regime. Extraordinary acts from ordinary people that are not making the news. To me, there's really been no greater example thus far in the American resistance movement of how effective civil nonviolent resistance is than the work that the people of Minnesota are doing. They understand all facets of it, all facets of how you do disruptive, nonviolent direct action, how you engage in mutual aid, how you pressure your elected officials. They're doing all of the right things. And as Tim Snyder says, it doesn't seem like you're winning until you actually win. You don't know that you're winning in the moment when you're winning. And yesterday, folks were telling us how difficult things are in Minnesota. And then all of a sudden this morning, Tom Homan announced total withdrawal from Minnesota. They're going to do a complete drawdown and they're going to exit the state. Now, Governor Tim Walz said that he was cautiously optimistic when it came to this news. He was going to trust but verify. I would not trust at all, and I would definitely verify.
We are cautiously optimistic, as we've said, and that this surge of untrained, aggressive federal agents are going to leave Minnesota. And I guess they'll go wherever they're going to go. But the fact of the matter is, they left us with deep damage, generational trauma. They left us with economic ruin in some cases. They left us with many unanswered questions. Where are our children? Where and what is the process of the investigation into those that were responsible for the deaths of Renee and Alex? So while the federal government may move on to whatever next thing they want to do, the state of Minnesota and our administration is unwaveringly focused on the recovery of what they did. And there will be many steps in this process, many answers that we still need to get and will pursue. But as we started earlier this week, one of the first things we can do, and what we're focusing on today, is what can we start doing on the economic recovery, the damage that has been done to our economy, specifically to small business owners, and even more specifically to immigrant small business owners, which for every other administration and for most of our history is the epitome of the American dream. Come to this country with nothing and build something to be proud of, build something that creates jobs, build something that creates this incredible diversity and a food scene across this state that is second to none, to entrepreneurship, to the work that they've done. Meeting a few weeks ago down at the Hmong market, and a gentleman who came here and got a food stall, and 3 of his children are now medical doctors that went through American universities to become medical doctors to help make this state the best for healthcare. Those are stories we should be celebrating, not dangerous police chases through peaceful neighborhoods, not little boys in little backpacks being hauled away, and not mourning of parents and family for American and Minnesota citizens being killed on the streets.
Understand this drawdown in Minnesota, DHS leaving with their tail between their legs, that is happening for one reason. And that is because there was massive public backlash against the brutality of the regime. Mass public opposition is how you stop an authoritarian. And Minnesota gave us a masterclass. They are continuing to give us a masterclass in how to do that. General strikes, radical love and care for immigrants, mass protests, direct action in the streets. This is a huge success. Now, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep pushing. But at the same time, as we continue to keep pushing, let's look to Minnesota and replicate the ways they have been so successful. They're showing us the way to do it, y'all, and we need to get on board immediately. So let's look at what's actually going on here with Tom Homan and DHS declaring that they will be exiting Minnesota.
I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week. We have a lot of work to do across this country to remove public safety risk who shouldn't even be in this country, and to deliver on President Trump's promise for strong border security and mass deportation. Law enforcement officers drawn down from this surge operation will either return to their duty stations or be assigned elsewhere to achieve just that.
This is what we call a strategic retreat, right? The mass public opposition in Minnesota has bit them real hard, and they cannot risk any more public backlash. They cannot risk more and more people becoming activated. Every action that they take in Minnesota that they think is cracking down and is going to make people give up, cower in their homes, it's having the exact opposite effect. When a would-be autocrat escalates their repressive activities and that repression backfires, you get a growing resistance movement that begins to not only hold the line, but effectively push back the regime. This is how we win against autocrats. And they know that. They done fucked up real bad by fucking with Minnesotans. They picked the wrong target. I mean, you could argue there is not an American city that they could target that is not going to face vigorous resistance, but they picked probably the worst possible one by going for Minnesota. Minneapolis and St. Paul, they were not going to go quietly, and they were definitely not going to lay down and let their neighbors be kidnapped. The regime is putting their typical bullshit spin on this, saying, we've made Minnesota safer by taking 4,000 immigrants. And they want you to think that they've taken like violent rapists and criminals and gang members out of Minnesota. They're taking 5-year-old Liam. They're taking moms. They're taking 80-year-old grandpas, right? They're taking people, decent working people. In fact, I think don't quote me on this number, but I think it's 116 undocumented immigrants are sitting in Minnesota jails, and ICE hasn't come and taken any of them. They don't care about those guys. They care about people who are not criminals, right? Because they're trying to meet Stephen Miller's obscene quota of 3,000 immigrants a day. They're busting down the doors to people's homes, violating the Fourth Amendment. They are indiscriminately abducting people off the street who turn out to be American citizens, who turn out to be people here on asylum status, who turn out to be green card holders. And then they have to put those people back on the streets. So I don't know that 4,000 number, that's how many people they've nabbed. I don't know that that's how many people they have managed to disappear into their system. And we know they have taken families with children to the Dilley concentration camp in Texas. But I don't know how many of those 4,000 individuals they've had to turn back out on the streets. I do know that they dump immigrants out in the middle of the night from Whipple when they get a judge's order so that they have to release them. They dump them out with no coat, sometimes no shoes, no phone, no cash, no identification. And then volunteers come and they surround those folks with love and care and make sure that they get food to eat, a coat, they get home, they get a phone. The regime is trying to put this spin on this, like we've done our job and now we get to leave and move on somewhere else. And I understand they will likely be going somewhere else. There are concerns that they may come to Portland next because of some of the rhetoric that we've heard from the regime. They're going to try this shit somewhere else because fascists don't stop until you stop them. They may be defeated in one locale, but they're not just going to like give up and stop doing a fascism. They're going to try somewhere else until they're successful. And they won't be successful anywhere in the United States. Those fuckers are not going to get anybody rolling out the welcome wagon for them. They're going to get vigorous resistance no matter where they go. And whatever shit they try and pull, they will never be welcome. Do you hear that? CBP, you hear that? ICE agents, quit your fucking job. Everybody hates you. Everybody hates you. You're not a hero. You're not helping American cities. You are harming everybody. I don't know how you sleep at night. Quit your fucking job. So not only have regular, ordinary people in Minnesota defeated a violent armed paramilitary, and they're having to retreat. There's another layer to this, which is they are anticipating that if they were to stay in Minnesota, that the PR would just get worse and worse because the things they're doing are really terrible. And we are getting all of this documentation from local media, local ordinary people on the ground who are telling us what's happening there. And the longer they're there, the more they invoke the backlash effect. And they're really, really worried about increasing negative opinion, because right now the DHS funding package is on the line in the Senate. It's not passed. We're looking at a partial government shutdown, and they really, really are trying to get some of those surrender Dems to flip and vote for the DHS package. And the way that they're doing that is saying, look, we're leaving Minnesota. You're not going to see any more violent footage. We're totally drawing down. Just go ahead and fund this. Just go ahead. So right now the funding package is held up because Republicans are not willing to negotiate at all. They're not willing to practice normal governance at all. And, Democrats want just a few very mild constraints, mild guardrails on DHS. I don't think it goes far enough. I think we need to be looking at the House Democrats who are saying abolish ICE, dismantle DHS, it's rotten to its core. And this was something that actually came up in the Indivisible What's the Plan call today. And Ezra and I are simpatico. I tend to agree with him almost all of the time. Ezra said that his take on this whole issue was that Dems are eager to fall in line. Right now, Democrats are holding the line. There's that group of corporate surrender Dems. They don't want to have to do this. They are only holding up this funding because we're holding their feet to the fire, right? And Ezra said, I think there are Dems eager to fall in line, and they don't want to talk about DHS funding anymore. They don't want to talk about abolishing ICE anymore. They're only holding the line because we are making them. And DHS knows that. The regime knows that. They're thinking like, if we pull out of Minnesota, that gives y'all an excuse to say that we've done something, right? Just like last time we had a government shutdown. I think it was Dick Durbin said, oh, well, we've raised awareness so we can reopen the government without getting any of our demands. And so I do think that there is a worry. I have the worry. I have the worry, and I think other people do as well, that a number of surrender Democrats are going to look at this action in Minnesota and say, okay, well, we held out and that got them to draw down in Minnesota. And so now we can just go ahead and vote for this funding package to go ahead and fund DHS's violent, lawless reign of terror where they violate the First, 14th Amendment rights of Americans. And we cannot allow that to happen. So it's up to us, the American people, to go, as Leah says, all gas, no brakes. Pressure on, full throttle. We need to be contacting our senators every single day, and not just like 1 or 2 calls. Get all your buddies. They need to get 100 calls a day about this, and you hold the line. Absolutely meaningful guardrails and constraints on DHS, or else. Nothing else. Settle for nothing less. Likewise, none of us need to be letting our guard down at all. This is a time where we continue, again, full gas, no brakes, both with defense of immigrants, serving, protecting, caring for our communities, and also keeping our legislators' feet to the fire. In Minnesota, they're going to stay active and mobile. They're going to keep doing that work. And the way we show solidarity with them is we keep the pressure on Democrats.